Rand Paul says those guys have a lot to be angry about, and he joins me now. So, sir, why do you think Silicon Valley is mad at the president?
Well, what I think is that what people don't realize about a capital investment firm is when they come in, if they don't come in at all, the business may lose all of its jobs. So let's say there's 1,000 employees and a business is struggling and it needs an infusion of capital. Maybe all 1,000 lose their jobs, but maybe an investment firm comes in and 500 people lose their jobs, or you could say 500 people keep their jobs. So I think these people just don't understand capitalism. They don't understand private equity. And really, they frankly are being very unfair to Romney.
Yeah, and to your point, you know, angel investors basically helped launch, we've got the list for you, sir. Apple, Google, Facebook, Yelp, PayPal, all were helped out by angel investors. Do you think they're kind of spooked that capital gains taxes are going to rise next year if the president wins?
Well, I think it's going to get to be such nonsense that the president will back down, because I think the American people aren't that gullible to think that investors are somehow the enemy, that corporations are the enemy, or rich people are the enemy. What I think the American people are going to understand is they want the private sector to grow everybody. Rich people, poor people, middle class, we want them all to do better, so more jobs are created. But it's not me against you. It's not rich people against the middle class. It's not this politics of envy and divisiveness. It's really about we want all of the private sector to grow, and I don't think jealousy and envy are a great political device for the president.
You know, it creates worse citizens when you have bigger government, sir. I think that's your point, right?
Exactly. And really, it has to be about growing the private sector. The government sector should always be kept at a minimum because it's just not very efficient. But jobs are created in the private sector, so we need to have lower taxes, less regulation, and let the economy thrive.
If you tax the rich, which, by the way, most all small businesses are in the upper bracket, they are in the so-called rich brackets, what would that do toward paying down the interest costs on the debt?
Well, I think what it does is it destroys the people who are paying all the taxes. Right now, those who make over $200,000 a year pay 70% of the income tax. So if you punish them and make it harder for them to earn money, one, you create more unemployment, but you also hurt the tax base because they are the tax base already. And see, a lot of this is just not true. The top 1% in our country are paying nearly 40% of the income tax. The top 1% in our country pay more than they do in Europe. We have a more progressive tax code than they have in Europe. So really, all of the president's attacks are based on falsehoods. And I think as this continues to play out, you'll find that the American people aren't gullible enough to buy it.
Yeah, and if you tax the rich 100%, not only would you demolish jobs, you really wouldn't go toward paying the interest costs on the debt for a couple of years. You just wipe it out. But I want to turn on to another subject for a second. The Vice President Joe Biden had said that just because you work at Bain Capital, no more qualifies you to be president versus being a plumber. What do you make of that quote?
Well, I think it's a not very intelligent quote. What I would say is I do want someone who's been good at managing businesses that have been in failure and trying to turn them around. Right now, I'd consider our government to be a failed business. And so I think Governor Romney would be precisely the person I would want to turn around a failing business like our government, which wastes. You know, we spend $100 billion a year that we can't even account for. Our agencies are throwing good money after bad. I think someone who has been a businessman, who has turned around businesses, would be precisely the one you would want to turn around your country.
All right, since our president was elected, we've spent about $5 trillion. That's equal to Germany and South Korea being added to the balance sheet of the books. What did the United States get for that $5 trillion?
Well, not a lot good. I would say that we still have 12 million people unemployed. We're still in a housing crisis, if not a depression. And really what we've done is we've added a burden of about almost $50,000 in debt per person. We're borrowing $50,000 a second. And many of us are worried that the European crisis is a contagion that's coming to the United States next.
In other words, we didn't get a little went toward building infrastructure. It seemed to have gone toward favored constituencies like the auto industry or things like training programs, right?
Well, and the thing is, if you look at jobs created or saved, if you want to use the president's definition, it's $400,000 per job. So it's not a very efficient use of capital. Government is inherently inefficient, so you want to leave as much money as you can in the wallets of consumers and Americans, and you only want to send the minimum amount to Washington because everything done by government is inherently inefficient.
Yeah, and then you get a bigger IRS to collect for the bigger the government gets. But I want to turn to your father. How is your father's campaign going? I think there's some controversy about him, your father still wanting to get delegates, Mr. Ron Paul. How's his campaign going?
Well, I would say that he's been nothing but a great asset for the Republican Party. He's brought a lot of youthful enthusiasm, a lot of independence, a lot of people who had become disgruntled with the Republican Party and had left the Republican Party have come back because of Ron Paul. So I think the Republican Party ought to be very proud of what my dad's been doing in growing the party.
All right, Senator Rand Paul, so good to be with you tonight, sir. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck to your father, too.
Thank you.
Sure. Next up, the Dow dropping for the 14th time in 16